Before I saw, when I was planning for this podcast about 2 years ago, I had a hit list of around 150 people in our region that I wanted to target. And you were obviously one of the top people that I wanted to target. And now here we are after all these years. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. So listen, I know when I was researching your profile, obviously for all this time, I was so fascinated by the breadth and width of your leadership experience. But then now you went back to being a student.
Exactly.
So tell me, what's up with that?
Yeah, no, I've really been blessed. It was an excellent journey with a company that I've been spending, 25 years with. Basically, having the luxury to work with so many different cultures all over the world, always with great teams, in great markets, and a leadership role, working with superb, technology. And I came to the realization that we are undergoing one of the largest changes in probably our lifetimes, of course, with the acceleration of AI and robotics and what they mean to us as a society, as an industry, as business. And as someone who loves change, someone who really, really loves technology, I felt it's about time for me to actually understand what this means and also explore the opportunity to study again, to get to know exactly what AI is about, and find a way for me to add value in this new world.
Did you attend classes?
So I started this Chief AI Officer a few weeks back now at the
University
Chicago
of Booth. Yeah.
Chicago Booth Business School. It's remote, but you have to attend the classes online. It's only
Yes.
live.
Like most things now, right?
Exactly. And it's really very exciting because the majority of the cohort who is part of that are people who are already having roles in AI. It could be, digital transformation or data scientists or whatnot. So you learn a lot, not only from the professors, but also from the student cohorts themselves, sharing some practical examples of what they've been through.
How did you feel first time you actually wanted to press the button and pull the trigger on you going back being a student again?
It's actually something I really wanted to do because I believe as a leader.
You actually were looking forward to it?
Yes, absolutely. Because, that's the whole point. After 25 years, I chose to move on from Ericsson because I feel as a leader, I would like to progress, right? I would like to improve my skills, to gain new avenues. And I felt, what's more interesting, exciting, and profoundly, characteristic than what we're seeing happening around us right now. So for me, this is something that I've really yearned for, and I'm super happy to have found the right fora to do this.
Do you remember the feeling you got when you attended the first class? It was like, what did I do to myself now?
No.
I'll tell you why.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't know if you have this. I don't know if I'm unique on this, but sometimes I have nightmares. And my nightmare is I'm walking into an exam hall and it's the high school exams or the university exams. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, thank God, I'm an adult. So when you put yourself back into that turmoil, do you have the same feeling or am I unique? I don't know.
No, I don't have the same feeling, to be honest.
I'm unique then, yeah.
This is an executive education, which means you seek it yourself, right? If you're interested. And I frankly believe it is the right time for me to seek this kind of new skills, So no, on the contrary, for me, it's really, really fun to be part of such a.
You were actually looking for it.
Absolutely.
And what's the hardest part about it so far? How long have you been in it so far? A few months, you say?
A few weeks.
Okay.
A few weeks ago.
So what's the hardest part so far?
It's probably the time zone difference.
Oh, right. Oh, is it US based?
Yes, it's US based.
Oh, goodness me. So probably
Chicago based.
What's the time now in your classes?
It's probably, it's around 3 a.m.
Oh, wow. Are you serious?
Yes.
That's horrible. How are you managing that?
Well, as I said, it's my choice. It's something I really want to be taking part of, and that makes everything easier, frankly.
But that's jet lagging every day, no?
It's okay. It's okay. You get used to it.
And what's the most exciting part about this journey?
What I feel is very exciting is that the area of AI is evolving by the week, by the month, right? So it's not only about getting a formal education in such a business school, it's also about complementing that with your own self-studies and following that topic every day, basically. So it's kind of a parallel learning scheme. One, which is I get a structured learning from a business school. The other one is my own,
Curiosity. Yeah.
exactly. And adding to every single tool that's coming up today, trying to understand what that means and so forth.
I know it's too early, but what one specific piece of knowledge that you were like, whoa, I made the right choice?
The learning about agentic AI and what that means.
Okay.
So basically, when we look at AI agents, it's a piece of software who's going to be able to take action. So today, of course, you and everybody else, we are all using generative AI, ChatGPT, and other types of models to support us in our writing, in our creativity, in our structure.
Brainstorming, yes.
The next step, which has already started, is then having or developing AI agents.
To replace us.
Not really to replace us, but to really give them an opportunity to take action. It could be you're planning a trip somewhere. You said, okay, I would like to go to Singapore. These are the dates. Find me an itinerary for 10 days. I would like to stay at this type of hotels. And the AI will not only come back with an itinerary, but it will actually do the actual booking. It will send the itinerary to you and to the email of your family members or friends that you're going through. So it's offloading you with actual action. Now, translate that into a corporate setting and imagine the amount of productivity that can be achieved when we talk about, back-end tasks, customer support, any kind of administrative, tasks that would require a lot of work today would be alleviated to a certain extent by agentic AI. I think that's going to be a very big, impactful evolvement of the AI technology coming forward.
So the moment you mentioned let's say the agent, the travel agent, right? I immediately thought of, okay, why do I need to pay an agent? I'll do it with agentic AI. Therefore, that job is gone. You were a corporate leader. I assume you had thousands of people reporting to you in all, walks of life. I can think immediately of many, many, many of those that would be replaced by those, because they not only can do analytics and analysis and data collection, but also they can take action. And obviously with time, they can be much more valid and accurate in their results, right? And you can set KPIs. You can have one person to monitor, let's say, a job of 10 agentic AIs that can also monitor the performance. How does that make you feel?
Look, I think you're alluding to, is this kind of technology a threat to jobs, right?
Yes. Look, I'm trying to be as pragmatic, as no fluff, as real as possible for two reasons. First, what's going to happen, it is going to happen, whether we like it or not. We know this. I had, in my practice here, I had a law firm that I used to pay retainer. When ChatGPT came in, I didn't renew with them. And since then, I'm having far more accurate contracts and results and analysis and obviously in a split of a second, than I would ever dream to have with my law firm. You know what I mean? They lost that business because of AI. That's very pragmatic. Put aside all of our feelings, all of our sort of fluff. It is how it is. So if these law firms, if they are progressive in their thinking, much like you going out and studying and learning, obviously for every job, you're going to have 10 jobs created because of how the information age is. But those 10 jobs are not they will not be taken by those people. They were taken by a different set of people because it requires different skill sets and everything else. And if we're going to be fluffy around it, there's this risk of people thinking, oh, there's nothing going to be wrong. All of a sudden, 1,000 people are being laid off, thinking that, why did this happen to us? So really my aim from this talk to you today is twofold. First, to understand this reality from that vantage point, because you were and you are one of the icons in our region here when it comes to leadership, development, growth, people, and also now you're doing AI. So really you have a unique vantage point to express to everyone the reality of what's coming. So they need to be prepared. Now, the ones who don't get prepared, no, they can't complain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like that's my thinking process. So yes and no to answer your question.
Yeah. Now, look, I mean, you're definitely right. If you look at all kinds of huge technology eras that we have witnessed the past hundreds of years, there's always been a kind of anxiety, of course, because it is changing the status quo. And, moving away from a comfort zone and change is always going to create anxiety. And that's very normal. It's very normal in large organizations as well. And everybody's seeing what is happening. And as you said, it increases the productivity, it increases the quality and all of that. But as we've learned with every single technological area, be it industrial revolution, be it the advent of automobiles, where at that time, having a horse carriage, blacksmiths, of course, there was fear about what would happen to that industry. But look what happened then. Huge manufacturing plants for vehicles, supply chain, logistics, millions of jobs were created.
Absolutely.
Same thing with the ATMs. When ATMs came, everybody's saying, oh my God.
Tell us.
Exactly. Why would you need them? And look at how the banks today and how many people they employ. So I definitely believe that every technology actually does create new avenues for society and industry to have lots of opportunities and create new roles. But I definitely agree with what you said. We all need to be a bit ahead of the curve, and we all need to invest in our own knowledge. So as a leader in a corporate, it's very vital that, number one, we have a compelling vision on how new technologies will strengthen our vision, will strengthen our company objectives, and how the team will take part of that. And also, we want to be very upfront in enabling the teams to be able to acquire the right competence and the skill set. And as a corporate, typically large corporates, they have lots of tools and avenues to do so. So, and frankly, even if you're an employee or not, with the internet, with YouTubes, I mean, there's so many different ways to acquire a lot of knowledge, most of the time free of charge. So it's an incredible time to be living in. And I think we need to take our own responsibility in investing in ourselves.
I love your analysis. The way you just alluded to leaders and how they want to make sure that they train and upskill their teams. But then you also gave the responsibility and the onus on the individuals themselves to go and get that knowledge and upskill themselves. So we'll talk about these two groups now in order. Let's start with leaders. If I was a CEO of a large organization and I have 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 people under me, and then this technology, agentic AI, came in, and I'm sitting there. I know my bottom line. My bottom line is, let's say, 500 million or 1 billion. And my top line is probably 3, 4 billion or 10 billion, whatever. And I know that I can increase my top line from 10 billion to probably 15 billion and reduce my bottom line from, let's say, 1 billion to 200 million. But that requires a sacrifice of probably 20 to 30% of my workforce. Now, this is me talking. What I would do is I will send an announcement. Obviously, I have to consult with HR. I have to consult with how people will behave and also to behavioral and cultural elements within the organization. But what I would do in abstract is I would send saying, you've got 6 months and this is the road plan for us. And that's what I would do. These functions will be eliminated. And these are the new tools that you need to upskill yourself in 6 months. But in 6 months, we'll do an evaluation. And those who succeed will be transitioned from role A to role B, because then you will contribute to the top line. Those who don't are out. And then when time comes, I'll actually have zero moral quandary to send those people home. But that's me. What would you do?
If I was an employee or if I was...
No, if you were a leader. We're talking about leaders now.
Yeah. I think that we are focusing too much today on the efficiency part of AI. I think as a leader, you should start with the big question, how can this new technology make me, thrive in my market? Can I offer something more, compelling to my customer? Can I improve my solutions? Can I create a bigger moat towards my competition? The efficiency part is there, but I don't think it's enough to only, count your eggs on that part, because everybody's doing the same, right? If everybody does the same efficiency maneuvers, you're going to still, relatively go back to exactly where you were. So I believe the first part of a leader is to take a step back and take a much bigger look at how can I use this technology to the benefit of my company's strategy. And that's what many leaders are missing by just jumping on the efficiency part first and foremost. And that's why it's important to give the organization a chance to experiment with the AI, with the tools, because you don't know what they can come up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only by experimentation and allowing it to pop up ideas here and there, will you actually find, oh, wow, this is an incredibly great idea. Let's see if we can scale this, and let's see what comes out of it. So you should give time to really have that kind of experimentation.
So let's say we experimented.
Yes.
And after the experimentation, we conclusively have a confidence level of, let's say, up more than 90%, 95%, that not only we will improve efficiency, but also will be able to dominate at the top line level. So again, from 10 billion to 15 billion.
Very good.
And we'll be able to offer better customer experience, because now there are less errors, there are faster turnaround time. You still have a human touch. So the strategy is still like great, not like those banks and companies in our region who just eliminated the press zero to talk to your agent. That's horrible decision. I don't know who made that decision. I do not want to talk to AI. I mean, funny story. Okay, so let me digress a bit. Funny story. So in my company, so I have multiple funnels, right? And many people, CEOs and others, they click on the funnel and they kind of go through the sales process. And I have an SOP for my team to go through the stages of the communication, to set the meeting and then, and close and so on and so forth. People now are more skeptic. They always say on WhatsApp or on our channels, am I speaking to AI or a human being? I kid you not, I can show you the text, and my team sends me the text, and like, what do I say here? This is outside of my script. And I'm like, just act as a human. Send him a voice note, tell him whatever. But that's how people are annoyed by the fact that corporates are leading with customer experience with AI. And I agree with you on that. So that's a given. So I digress. But the point is, after testing, after prototyping, after all sorts of experimentation, that this agentic AI will actually increase your top line by definition, market share, product experience, yada, 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 and have an efficiency.
Yes.
But the problem is, if you want to apply it, you have to let go of 20% of your workforce.
Yes.
What do you do?
Well, Osama, there's no difference. Look, company is a commercial entity. Every single company that has existed, every single leader's role is to ensure competitiveness of the company, financial health of the company, obviously financial or health of the employees and their motivation. But throughout the history of every single company on earth, you go through times where you need to, structure the organization to the actual market and business you're doing. So it's not really related to AI or not. At all times as a leader, you will have to make these difficult decisions. And for the good, for the larger best of all of the employees and their families working for the company, you need to sustain the sustainability of the company. And hence, yes, you will sometimes take these difficult decisions. And yes, sometimes you will need to let people go, but you have to do it with full empathy, professionalism, and actually support them. See, maybe there could be a rotation within that company first and foremost, right? Support people, elevate their skills, support them, maybe find roles somewhere else. There are examples of companies who do this in an excellent way, whereby they say, we're not going to let anybody go, if I go back to AI in particular now, but rather we're going to stop hiring new people, and we will let just normal attrition lower, the size of the company. And if our employees are coming with great ideas using these new technologies, we're going to repurpose part of those financial benefits into their compensation. So you can do things in a much more positive way as well.
Human way. Oh,
Yes,
wow. Okay. So
absolutely.
you just touched on many ideas. You know, I was reading the other day about IKEA, you know, the furniture store. They had implemented AI at the call center level to a point where they had, I think, 8,000 people that were out of job. 8,000, I think it was 8,000. It was a massive number. So what they did is they had actually a program where they retrained them to be interior designers at a lower level on the shop floor. And I thought to myself, that is a fantastic way of a win-win, because now you have more people, instead of just wandering around in the IKEA floor looking for those yellow shirts, right? Now you have people who can actually help you and not just guide you to where a certain product is, but actually have the skill set to design, which necessarily means upselling, cross-selling, but also satisfaction to the client, because now they're not just taking a piece of furniture and putting it anywhere. They're actually having this productive conversation with the client.
Correct.
And that's the best way. So you mentioned upskilling, you mentioned empathy, you mentioned humans. In your opinion, and I'll come to your experiences specifically within your previous company, but what do leaders get wrong about it in our region specifically?
Well, look, I can only speak about myself. I think if I look at one of the most important tenets of leadership is being able to connect with people and being interested in people, right? That's the starting point. If someone is not interested to spend time with somebody, listen to them, it could be grievances, and manage, conflicts, manage emotions, manage needs, wants, and dreams, then you shouldn't be a leader, because that's really one of the biggest
Oh, wow.
jobs of being a leader. Respect is everything in any relationship, right? That you might have a marital relationship, a friendship, or a professional working relationship. Respect is extremely important. So it's really all starts with the team member and it ends with the team member. Being a leader is not for me and for the benefits that it entails. Being a leader is for my team. That's what the role is for, from a people management perspective. But I also have other duties as a leader. I'm here to progress the objectives and the strategies of the company I work for. So it also means I'm here to represent the global leadership, the global strategy, and put it into the context of, local, regional, territory. I'm here to ensure that I serve the customers in the best of abilities that we can. I'm here to ensure that we have a good, profit and loss and a healthy financial statement. So a leader is a multifaceted approach, but the basics must be, and the foundation to be good leader is to have and gain the trust of your team. And hence that means you need to provide them with that guidance and with that support.
So you touched on many points here, and let me unpack a few things one at a time, because the intention is to give value and nuggets of advice to our viewers who are mostly CEOs and investors and business leaders and founders and corporate leaders and so on. Most of the companies in our region here are not having their corporate offices, their main decision makers, their engines of ultimate sort of decisions are not in this part of the world. They're mostly in the West, let's say, mostly, right? And I've heard it from many of my friends who are, similar to your caliber, icons in the domain, that sometimes, most times, you mentioned something very profound, which is you have to connect with the people. So you here, not you as Fadi, but generally speaking, you as a leader of that multinational corporate is in contact with these people, you're empathetic, you listen to them. But someone somewhere sitting in the 100th floor in Boston or New York or London or wherever doesn't know the people here. Therefore, you're sandwiched between your team and that decision from a capitalist, profit-driven, corporate interests, rightfully speaking. There's no right or wrong. There's no moral judgments here. It is what it is. It's an Excel sheet that they see, and then whatever P&L, whatever kind of margins they want to increase, whatever it is. And then it parachutes on the leaders here. What's your advice to those people who are in positions of power here, and how can they handle this sort of challenge?
In such a situation, I see the leader to be a kind of gearbox, right? You are the person who needs to take the global direction, the global strategy, and then be able to customize it and implement it to the best way in the territory that you cover. And that's a very, very important role, right? And that's why you are here representing the company. And I see conversely as my responsibility would be to be the ambassador for my territory, meaning at all times, and not only waiting when there is a crisis or there is an issue, at all times, as a leader, I need to be briefing the headquarters about how this territory is progressing, the do's and don'ts, the cultural elements, where do we see the opportunities, where do we see the challenges, and make the headquarters part of our journey. Invite people to come here, to meet the customers, to get a real feeling of what it is to work in the region and make it part of their experience as well. And that's an investment that you need to do at all times. And at the end of the day, it does benefit the company to have, a kind of multifaceted view on all of these different regions that you're running. So I think it's our responsibility to bridge, frankly, these two organizations. And to also, on the other hand, when it comes to the team here in the territory, you need to explain how's the headquarters thinking, why were certain decisions taken. It's very important. Communication and transparency and being authentic in that transparency is incredibly important. So it goes both ways, that dialogue. And I think then you can achieve the best of two worlds.
I think that's an amazing advice. The one word that came to mind when you were discussing and explaining your advice is proactivity. And, don't expect if it happens in yesterday, then you don't know what to do. That means you've not been actually doing what you're supposed to do for the past God knows how many months or years. Right. So if you're transparent, authentic, you maintain integrity, then you will find answers to those difficult challenges when the time comes, because you have briefed both ways. And I'll tell you what. When you were explaining and said ambassador, I'm not going to lie. I thought that you're going to say ambassador for the corporate. But I love when I was reading your profile, one thing that stood to me about you, and allow me to explain this to you. Positivity. When I was reading your profile, it was clear that you have an extremely positive outlook, which is very refreshing. So when you said that you're the ambassador, and then you followed with for my region to corporate, I love that. Is this common? I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but is this common in the region here?
Again, it's difficult for me to have a view if it's common or not, but I think it's relatively, common sense, at least. And as I said, it goes both ways, right? It's a very important role, this kind of gearbox role, if I may call it that way, because you are representing headquarters and you're representing the region, to be able to really bridge these two organizations in both ways. And being an ambassador is very, very, very important, because of course, it's easier in a way when you work in a large company to understand the headquarters. There's a lot of communication. You understand the
politics.
You understand the strategy. You understand where we're going. All of that. It's more difficult maybe the other way around, because there's so many different territories around the world. So you need to play that role. You need to inform everyone and keep everybody updated.
What's the biggest challenge that you faced in your tenure within Ericsson when it comes to people?
I think something that I learned because of the blessing I had to work in so many international markets is to always enter a new region with a lot of humbleness and listening skills. In a way, you're a guest. You're arriving to a certain country, a culture. You need to start by getting close to people who are from that culture, learning from them. How do things work? There's a lot of intricacies and different aspects of professional work. And in order for you to really make an impact with the local teams, you need to understand them better. So I think that's a very rewarding thing to be able to be in that position, to learn, to adapt. But then you stay true to your own values as a leader, and in terms of what you want to achieve, you set very high bars, but maybe there are some customizations that you need to do for different cultures, even though you want to get to the same results.
Do you have a specific story that you can share with us?
I would say, for instance, in Asia,
Mhm.
it's I learned a lot. I worked in Hong Kong for many years. I worked in Singapore many years, and it were regional jobs, covering Asia. And it's an amazing, fantastic place, booming with optimism, a lot of hard work. But you learn as well how you need to engage with people. Be a bit more low key. You don't raise your voice. A lot of one-to-one meetings to give respect to people. How to ensure that you give feedback in a good way without making people lose face, and also how to solicit feedback for my own leadership. Where typically you would have your once a year or twice a year you have these pulse surveys that we would do in the company. But also I learned there, for instance, if I want to know a bit more, it would be difficult for me, as I would probably do in a Western setting, where I say, okay, guys, I sit here with my direct reports. What do you think? Can you give me feedback on this point? And maybe in a country like Sweden, people are very open and will tell you, yeah, Fadi, here I feel you should do better here and that. While there I learned it's a much better way to, you can't do that, right? It's hierarchy is very strong, probably in this region as well. But I learned that you should instead do an anonymous survey. So you task somebody in your team that is trusted by the direct reports, and he or she would go and collect purely anonymous feedback and share it with me one-on-one. So that's another way to be able to, adjust to the culture in terms of how I would collect feedback, for instance.
Oh, wow. Okay. So why would you do that? Is it because of self-awareness? Is it because you're aware that you might have this bias from yourself by engaging yourself, and from the team because you're the boss?
You mean why I would...
How would you know that the team... I mean, obviously there's a massive amount of self-awareness that you possess, because you immediately think... I mean, my next question was about how do you know?
Yeah.
But then you answered it immediately, because the moment you said, oh, of course they will not be able to give me... I can't ask the question of how did I do or what's wrong or how... Because they will not. So you're aware of this, right?
Yeah. And that's because, I work closely with the people from that culture, from the region, and they give me those advice, right? So that's what I'm saying. You have to be humble, you have to be listening, and you have to adapt your ways of working.
Now, this is for an international leader, because you went out, and obviously if you don't do it that way, you won't be able to succeed. Let me share with you a small, I wouldn't say anecdote, it's part of my research, but just, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Here in the UAE, or let's say in the region, our region, if you don't do that, people will still perform well, despite the fact that they're not feeling that the culture is enabling them to be in growth or in a collaborative partnership or inclusive way, the way that you're explaining it. And the reason is most of the people here are expats, much like you and I. And the incentive for them to stay here is not because they want to get just the salary or the work, but the visa, the stability, the loss of lifestyle, the golden handcuffs that they have with all of the, bank loans and mortgages and, the Porsches and the watches and so on and so forth. So even if the environment is not good enough, there's almost zero chance, not zero, but there's a very minimal chance for the leader to even remotely think, oh, I have to take care of my people, for two reasons. First, mostly there'll be yes men around them or women. Second, the performance is already double-digit growth because of that element of pressure on them. So the gauges will be skewed from the vantage point of the leader. What's your thought on this?
Well, I think there are two elements to it. Number one, all of us who are working, we spend so much more time in the business than with our families. That's the realities of today, right? We agree. And both for the leader and the team members, why wouldn't you not opt to have a very encouraging, healthy, and positive environment. Why would you choose not to have that? For me, it doesn't make sense. Of course, it is the natural path. Since we are working so hard, since we are driving a mission we believe in and we have a purpose, we have to create an environment where we are thriving. As a pure professional respect, as a pure working relationship, you will be so much more happy. And the consequence of that is that you will perform much, much better. You're talking about double digit. Why stop at double digit? If the team is waking up, say, great, I feel comfortable with my boss. I know he has my back. I love this company, great team. We're all helping each other. All my energy is going towards progressing the company's objectives, rather than half of my energy is going at anxiety or pressure or not being happy. Any true leader would open the hearts of the team members to put their utmost love into the organization. And I believe that you will get much, much stronger results financially and otherwise for the company if you do so. So why wouldn't you do so?
Ego?
Could be. There could be many, many reasons, but then you probably missed the whole point of being the leader, right? Being the leader is making the best of what the company has. And that when it comes to human capital, we all know the best motivation is to put people in an environment where they're thriving. Handling financial resources is a different way. How can I ensure that I can save the most to the company? So every type of capital, be talent or otherwise, or resources, is the job of the leader to make best utilization of it.
You know, Fadi, I was talking to a leader the other day, and he was one of the people that, we're having this professional relationship. And he was complaining about that he's always firefighting. He's always in stress mode. He's always in, deep in the weeds. And he's complaining that he can't grow the organization because of that. Because you're either operationally involved or you're in a growth strategic mode, seeing where the ship will land next and let the team do what they do best, like you said. But he was complaining. But the first thing that came from his mouth is like, oh, the team is incompetent. The team is this. The team is that. And I started trying to probe. I try not to reach to a conclusion quite quickly. So I asked him, okay, what made you think that the team, it's the team? It can be the market. It can be anything. It can be you. He's like, no, it can't be me immediately. So he went in defensive mode. I said, okay, fine. So then I started diagnosing him as a leader and his personality. I was like, okay, so I don't need to probe deeper because otherwise I'm building walls and I'm not going to go anywhere. The point is not to put him on the spotlight. It was a one-on-one discussion. Then he started talking, and then he started complaining about the high churn rate and the cost of that high churn rate. And he said, every time an employee leaves, it costs me not just the time and effort, but also actual money that he has to spend on visas, on recruiters, on headhunting, on onboarding, and then how much do they need to assimilate within the culture of the organization, all that kind of complaints. I said, but they're incompetent. Who hired them? So, I mean, you see where I'm going there. He's so blinded, he or she, so blinded by their own ego and their own defensiveness to point out how, quote unquote, probably incompetent in that domain. They might be superstars, and this person is very, very competent as a technical person in their own business. They're the founders and the CEOs, right? And they have probably around 150 people in their organization. You see where I'm going there. And to be honest, in my field, I see this more times than I would wish to see it, especially in our region. Now, if I compare it and juxtapose it to other parts of the world, let's say even in Asia, but also in the West, this is not as common for a simple reason. Not because people are good or bad, not because this culture is better than that culture. It's not that. It's because if you're in Europe, and you have a company that doesn't take care of the culture and the people, you will quit. You'd rather go back to your mom's basement and probably start your own thing or work something else, maybe work at McDonald's and anywhere else. in this part of the world, this doesn't happen. It's not as common. And what happens is people start going from one job to the other. So two things happen. Companies get impacted severely, but also individuals are always stressed because they're always on the lookout and looking for another job and the other sort of opportunity. And it creates this bubble in the market that everybody's a loser. I mean, what do you feel about that?
Well, it's a lot to unpack, but let me maybe start with the word ego because you've used it a few times. And I think this is the biggest danger for any leader. The healthy way to approach any role that you receive, especially when you get promoted, is to look at it as a great opportunity that the company has now given me, is stretching me, and I need also to grow into that role. So the last thing to think about is, oh yeah, I made it, I'm the big, the last thing that you should think about is that ego blinds you and actually stops you from growing yourself. The minute we have ego as our guide, we believe that we have reached the epitome of performance, of the way of managing different situations, of handling customers, or handling the team. So where are you going after that? You've maximized your potential. And honestly, it doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever for your own development. A leader should feel that he or she is developing every single day. Every single day, different things are happening to us. It could be a crisis, could be a big celebration of a great deal, whatever. We are learning, all of us at the same time. And we need to put on that hat. And also, especially when you work in a large company, you're given a title for a certain period of time. You don't own that title. You don't own the company. You're an employee. And everybody else has a chance to get, an opportunity to do that role that you're having today. So in a way, you should always look at it as being grateful, frankly. Being grateful to be in a position of leadership where you can impact the company objectives, you can impact the team members, you can impact your customers and the community that you are serving as well. So look at it more as a great opportunity of impact and really eliminate any kind of hints of ego, defensiveness, or anything of that sort.
In your organization, how many people were within the org chart reporting to you in total? Not direct reports, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, it varies, but around 4,000 or 5,000 in-house. We have a few more thousands that were also insourced.
Okay. How many levels in the structure?
Could be 5 or even 6 at some point.
5. So between the kind of the lowest, let's say in the org chart, and you, there are probably 5 layers. What if layer 3 or layer 4 had that issue? How would you know at the top? Because clearly, obviously, I mean, this is why I sort of was looking forward to talking to you, because you have that sort of thing that I want to propagate and everybody sort of copy and model, right? But you're there.
Yes.
And you have 4,000. So that's a lot, right? In addition to everything else, you can't obviously speak to 4,000 people. That's impractical in reality. How would you know?
This is excellent question, because I believe, honestly, the biggest challenge of leadership is typically not always found. I mean, assuming the top leadership is benign and doing everything right? That's
that's the assumption. Yes.
The issue is when you start cascading the values and the leadership traits that you want to see, something happens around the lower levels of the hierarchy, and it's not always that everybody had a chance to travel around the world and learn a lot of things. So maybe they come with a certain set of preconceptions, and that's how leadership should be, because I saw my boss doing it, and it could be leadership by fear or different types, right? So that's very, very important. And for me, there are different ways in order to really understand what people are feeling at the working level of the hierarchy. So I would say, number one, reading every single comment in our survey. So when we do these bi-yearly surveys, I could get thousands of comments. And they're not long. Every comment could be 3-4 sentences, sometimes 1 sentence. So I read them all.
All of them?
Absolutely.
How long did it take you? Do you remember?
It takes a few hours every day that you put and say,
Right,
okay, I'm gonna focus on that.
So set time to actually deliberately and with focus and intentionality to go through every single comment.
Otherwise, why would we do the survey?
So
Just to get the number?
That's a very good question.
Is that nice if it's at 4.1 or 4.2 and then I'm happy? No, of course not. The reality is in the comments. It's not only in the numbers. The numbers is just a reflection of a trend.
Okay.
But what about the details? So you have to read it. Otherwise, you're not connected
that's hard.
to the team. No, it's not hard. Why is it hard? A few hours of your, 3-4 days, a few hours here and there, and it's done. It's done. And then, of course, you need to find out what are the patterns and, write a few sentences for yourself. What am I really reading? Okay, it could be people want to have better career planning avenues. Could be something as mundane as, my office design is not looking good or whatever. It could be very...
Really? You had those?
But you have to make patterns and go for the most important ones. There you will see that you get an impact, positive impact on the organization. So that's one. Another one, of course, whenever you travel, you're there for the customer, you're there for the regulatory bodies, you're there for the community, but you're also there for your teams. Not only doing all-employee meeting, that's of course a must, but also sitting down with, selected up-and-coming talent where you can give them, even if you give them 20 minutes, just for them to express, how they're doing, what they want to do, how they see the company. You learn a lot from these, dialogues. And a third one, which I really enjoyed a lot, is I had what I called straight talks.
Straight talks. Okay.
Straight talks. So that meant we had meetings with the level 3.
Okay. Oh, level 3. Okay.
Separate, only me and the level 3 without their bosses, and me and level 4. So these two, I had them once a quarter, sometimes every second month, depends. And no PowerPoint, no agenda. I just come. Hi, everybody. Great to be here. So who wants to go first? And the rule is you have to ask me interesting questions. You have to give me tough questions. Otherwise, I'm not interested in continuing if it's going to be politically correct. So I encourage them to really come up with the tough questions.
You encourage them?
Of course. It's much better that I know what's in the minds of the teams rather than them going around and talking about it in the corridor and nobody's attending to that. So I tell them, ask me. If, for instance, if there's a decision that myself and my leadership we took and you still don't get it, why did these guys do so? Ask me. I'll give you the reasoning behind it. Or it could be a decision from our headquarters.
Was there embarrassing questions or sort of shock?
No embarrassing and no shock. They were...
You?
No, for me, I don't see it as embarrassing. On the contrary.
You're actually seeking.
I love it and I wanted to hear it. And there's a lot of difficult questions, you can say maybe. They're not embarrassing, but those are the type of questions we need to uncover because it gives me, number one, a chance to better understand the team and how they perceive things if they are maybe not communicated correctly, right? And number two, it gives me also an opportunity to explain and communicate what were the steps and what's the thought process behind certain decisions. And most of the times, I'm not going to say that you gain 100% acceptance for everybody, but you definitely gain the majority, the acceptance of the majority.
Yeah, for sure.
And you need such a setting where it's only you have time allocated, and any question goes. And of course, if somebody is courageous and bold and puts a tough question, that gets the other members straight talk to step up and say. It is really wonderful, and also because I learn a lot. I learn a lot about operational issues I would never see otherwise.
Of course.
That they share with me, and then after the meetings, typically, I draft an email with different action points to my direct reports. I say, look, I heard this, and this. Can you please go and check it out? Can we please improve this? Come back to me, and then I will report back to my straight talk team. If I got some action points, I'll report back to them. This is what I've done it. Many times when they come with suggestions, the straight talk cohort, I give them the action points. Okay, this, I think you can solve it on your level. You don't need escalation.
Yes.
Why don't you select coaching, 3 other people from this team, work on it, and next time we meet, you present to all of us what you've done.
How do you manage? So surveys, reading the comments, which is very important. How often did you do the surveys?
Well, we had it twice a year.
Twice a year. Okay, that's good enough. And then you have the straight talks, which is quarterly or every 2 months.
Yeah.
And then you do it without, so the 2-3 layers
Correct.
within the org chart. How do you manage retaliation from their bosses in case any? We're only humans. People can be emotional, irrational. How do you manage? And did you face any of those issues in your tenure?
No. There shouldn't. Why should there be any retaliation?
Because where people are people, right?
No, look, I mean, I explain, I'm a very open book in a way, in my way of being. So I tell my team, this is what I'm doing. This is, for me to get a direct connect with your teams. I'm not in any way, shape, or form interfering in their leadership. That's their teams. They need to take care of them. All I'm doing is opening a communication channel. And it's critical for a leader to have a communication channel with all parts of the organization. Otherwise, if your only source of input is from the direct reports, I don't think that's enough to run a large communication organization and a complex, portfolio, complex markets. You need to have an wider understanding than what you see only with the direct reports. So as long as I'm 100% clear on the objective, and we are doing this for the benefit for the company, it will improve as well, their own remit. I don't see, and I've never heard any issues with that, frankly.
How did you handle criticism to you and your decisions?
As I said, for me, it's better that I hear it up front.
Okay.
Because it gives me a chance to explain the thought process. And majority of the time, definitely there's an acceptance. Sometimes there's not an acceptance. It's fine. It's okay. We disagree. At the end of the day, I need to take a decision and I stand behind it because that's what I see. I understand that from your position, maybe you won't agree with it, but fine. It's okay.
Do you remember a very tough or hard criticism that you've received from one of those, whether direct reports or someone within your organization? Does this happen before?
I don't think people put it as a criticism. People don't, in my experience, they don't criticize the persona. That's the kind of environment we created. You criticize the cause and the issue, but you don't attack people. So that's why it makes it much easier for anybody.
But that's high
to
EQ,
receive.
That's high EQ environment, right?
Well, look,
if you have an emotional quotient, healthy environment, then obviously this will happen because people will differentiate between the thing that's being criticized or objected or discussed and the person itself.
Absolutely.
But humans are not like that.
Well, maybe, I'm not sure humans are not like that. I think we have different parts of it in our soul, right? So we have some of it, we might not have some of it.
Yeah.
We might leaning to one shape, form or another, but that's again the job of the leader, to push us into an environment where you have that kind of EQ. Because again, you're doing it not only for the harmony of the team, but for the exponential performance, gains that you will give back to the company. And this is important, and this is frankly great for the business. You should start there. It's great for the business, and it is great for the people. So why wouldn't anybody do that? It's just beyond my understanding, right? When we have our meetings with my direct reports, I always say from the beginning, I don't like people sitting there for 2 days and being silent. If it's a leadership team meeting, for instance, I want people to express their opinions, especially where they're not in accordance with what's being decided in the room. If they're in accordance with what's about the room, there's nothing more to say, okay? But thank you. But especially when you have a different point of view, we are employed to give our professional views on things based on the background experience we have. If we don't do that, then we're not doing our duty. So I encourage debate, hard debate, before we come to decisions, because at least it gives you as a leader an opportunity to see things 360 degree. And it's much more fun.
If let's say you're talking to your team and you're asking them to do stuff and someone said no, how would you handle that?
I don't think they would say no. They will push back on, why should I do this? I believe it's another way. I mean, I will listen. Maybe they come with something better idea, right? If it's a better idea, then great. Let's adopt it for the whole team. If I'm not convinced, then sorry, I've listened to you, I've heard you, but I'm not convinced. So you have to do what I've asked you,
I
please.
love it. I love it. Because sometimes you have to show them who's the boss. Because at the end of the day, there's responsibility and accountability. And the higher you are in the hierarchy, the more power you have, the more accountability and responsibility. And with that responsibility comes a little bit of, let's say, executive decision making. But the way you positioned it is first you listen, you have a dialogue. But then if you're not convinced, then sorry.
Yeah.
It is how it is.
Absolutely.
How would they receive that?
No, I think if somebody feels that they've been heard, that's probably the most important element. Okay, I've been heard. I've made my statement.
Wow.
You still decide against my proposition, Fadi. I respect that because you gave me an opportunity. I think that's my experience, that's what I've seen, and that's how I would direct myself, right? If I also would oppose one of the suggestions of my boss, as long as I feel I've been heard, thank you. At least it's been taken into consideration. The boss needs to move on and make a decision, and I respect that.
You're touching on a very basic psychological yearning for every human being, which is being heard. Not necessarily. So what you said now is exactly synonym with how effective communication is. It's not about being yes man or no man or yes woman or no woman. It's actually attentively listening to the person who's speaking, taking into consideration everything, having a dialogue, but then reaching to a conclusion which is the best possible outcome. And as long as that dialogue is happening, people will not go into conflicts because of that.
Correct. I mean, it's very easy. When Google came, we used Google to believe in a way to augment our information. And we can take maybe decisions at home, we take decisions at work, you use Google to get information to guide you better. Now we're doing the same with Gen AI, right? So, of course, when you're at work and you are sitting with 16, 17 highly qualified professionals being your direct reports, why wouldn't you get that element of their knowledge, of their, history, of their potential to guide the decision? It's an incredible richness to work in these companies and to work with that talent. And that's why you need to listen to get this input. And it could actually improve the decision quality as well, right? So again, it benefits the company in terms of quality of decisions. It benefits the team in terms of being seen and heard.
What was the region that you were covering?
So the last role I had was Middle East and Africa.
Middle East and Africa. Okay, so Turkey is included or no?
Yes.
It was Turkey. So, and obviously you had exposure to Asia, you had exposure to Europe. How do you compare the different regions when it comes to the employees within those regions, when it comes to these type of things? And I'm talking about the leaders from within these regions.
Look, every culture has very different approach to leadership, right? Some be a bit more authoritative, some are more, let's say, collaborative. You find everything wherever you go. What is important is what do you as a leader want to have as a leadership style in your organization, and start with you. So I need to walk the talk, and the way I approach things subconsciously will actually have your direct reports act in a similar way, but with their own style. But they will, of course, see you, how you're acting. Everybody's looking at us as leaders, and that will propagate and cascade within the organization. So it's about acknowledging that all cultures are great. All cultures are different. They all bring their different strength into it. But then it's a culture that we want for this team. And it should, of course, reflect the culture of the company I work for, and that's where you bring your personal element of leadership. And you will see that with time, the organization does adapt. And I've seen big changes, in terms of leadership when you do so.
I love that. I love how you're just so focused on the human element, but also you're so observant of the differences. And I love how you said everything has its own strengths, and then put them together, you have this massive potential that then you can leverage because you're the leader. And the other thing that I loved about what you said is walk the talk. You said people observe behavior. So it's not just about the talk. It's not about the slogans that are hung on the elevators and in the meeting rooms. It's like, okay, this is our vision, this is our mission. But then you as a leader are not walking the talk, are not behaving well. knowing that people see what you do, not hear what you say,
Yes.
is very important. And I think if more people do that, the difference is lots of people are more performative than they are substantive. And, the hope that I'm trying to do from these type of talks is to make people aware, at least be aware that as a leader, it's what you do, it's how you model, it's what people observe is what the culture of the organization, not what you say and what you write in your beautiful annual emails that then praises the team and praises everything that the team does. Whereas every time you're speaking to them, you're not speaking to them as a true leader. And the way you always describe it is, I sensed from your way of talking is like truly, you always differentiate. There are leaders, but then there are true leaders. Did you pay attention to this? You're always saying this.
Yeah, could be. You're a better observer.
But it's amazing. Okay, so this is, yeah.
Look, I mean, two things I just want to add. Number one is authenticity.
Yeah.
People, all of the people we're surrounded with are impeccable talent, professional people. They have their own aspirations and dreams. They will follow somebody who they can trust. And trust comes from being authentic. Very tough decisions, you still hold your ground and you're authentic, but you explain why.
You have principles.
So as long as you do what you say and you say what you've done, I think people will gain trust with it and follow you. It doesn't mean they will like everything you're doing, but they respect the fact that you are authentic in what you have to do, right? I've had the privilege to get to work with so many different roles, different geographies. And many times I took on roles where there was a kind of a turnaround need to be done. The business wasn't doing well. The team wasn't working well. And of course, you have to work with the basics and the foundation when you do that. That's the strategy, talk to the customers, understanding what's not working, what is working, and all of that. That is foundational. But then to really succeed is to get the team with you every single time. You can be the best strategists in the world, but if you don't bring the team with you on that journey and everybody's aware what they need to contribute, you won't have a really successful turnaround. And that's why this is necessary. So I come back to it again. That's why I'm employed. I'm employed to perform results for the company. And I have all of these tools, right, that the company provides. But as a leader, my biggest job is to get the team with me on that journey to get that success as well. So that's why it's critical.
Exactly. And the one thing I've read somewhere, a theory of the savior complex, which is someone who's extremely competent, rose through the ranks and became a leader, but then they think that everybody else is technically, not just, competently below them, and therefore their leadership is not as strongly as you're describing it. So do you think leadership in the way that you've just illustrated in the last 45 minutes, can it be acquired? Can it be learned?
Absolutely it can, but you need to start with your own self-interest in wanting to learn. It has to be something you aspire to, that yes, I really would like to develop. Let me be curious. How? Let me maybe have a couple of mentors. Let me experiment in my daily work and test different things, what is working or not. So as long as you have that is aspiration in your own self, then yes, you can learn, you can progress, you can improve, you can definitely develop.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked about leaders now. Let's spend a few minutes on the rest of us, right? The people, the employees. We started with AI and how agentic AI is going to disrupt the workforce. And that's a pragmatic way of thinking. Much like how cars disrupted the carriage, the horses, and how everything else in life, right? Computers, what do they what do they need to do now, today, while listening to you now? What do they need to stop this podcast, listening to it, and do now? First thing they have to do.
Definitely welcome the change.
Okay. Mindset. I love that.
Yeah, because when you welcome the change, you start asking the questions, how can I be part of that change? Who says that this new technology era will not benefit me? Why start with that mindset? Start with the positive mindset. Wow, This will propel me to new heights that I didn't know. My God, I can spend, much more time now doing things that are adding much more value to the community or the company I'm working for than wasting so much time on administration, for instance. So really take benefit of what is available for you, because we can become a much better, stronger version of ourselves if we adopt these tools. And I fully understand that it can be overwhelming because there's so much news coming out, so many newsletters. Where do you start, right? And sometimes when we are overwhelmed and the pace of development is incredible, we get paralyzed. And that's not good either, right? So I think it's very important to say, okay, let me focus on one thing. You have a newsletter, don't you? Maybe you can focus the coming 4 weeks on studying what kind of agentic AI tools are out there. Are there some that are very good for a beginner like myself? Can I use them to automate a lot of my newsletter formatting and sending out emails? And if you put, a month or even 2 on that, and I'm sure you will succeed because it's not super difficult, just it will require some of your time.
Yeah.
2 months later, it says, wow, now I have 10 hours more to spend on content creation, thought leadership, and other important elements of what I'm trying to achieve. So I think that's
so my mindset. Okay, so we start with a positive mindset, and I love your outlook, Fadi. I have to say, it's very refreshing. It actually, I'm learning from you now that why do we need to? Because as a podcaster, as someone who speaks to people all the time, as a coach, I always ask, what's the biggest challenge that you face in your life, right? But you always twist it around. You always kind of corner me. I'm not able to kind of ask you the next question because you're saying, why ask that question? Let's look at the positive thing. Okay, change your mindset. Okay, how can I benefit this? And, if you don't believe in something, it will never come to you. If you don't believe there's ghosts, they will never come to you. So if you don't believe in that, they will never come to you. And that's the foundational thing. So, okay, mindset, number 1. What next?
Well, I remember when I started working, I was very young. I found an advert somewhere in some magazine, I tear it off and I put it in a frame behind me on my desk, and it says, you're the CEO of your life. I think that's the mindset we should all have. We get one life. And we are part of directing it. The choice that we're doing is where our life will navigate, right? So we can choose. We can choose to be defeatists, look at ourselves as a victim, or we can choose to say, yes, life is full of challenges. Of course, I have millions of challenges. But how do I want to approach them? How do I want to cross these challenges and get stronger on the other side? So that's why mindset is important in everything we do.
What could stop people from having that mindset?
Well, the impact, of course, of the challenges that you might face, how serious it is. All of us will take these type of impacts, but I think it's important to have a support system. Somebody who cares for you. It could be a spouse, family, children. It could be your friends, of course. Somebody at work that you confide in to really support you to get back on track, right? So it's not about not hitting difficulties. We are all here to go through a very difficult life in general, but also a superb life with unlimited opportunities as long as we succeed in getting, off these hurdles and continue to move on, progress forward.
Yeah. Okay. So you gave me an idea now. So in my newsletter from next week, this is a promise. I will have it focused on how can we leverage agentic AI. And in the process, I'll learn myself how can I leverage it on my own business. So that's good. So make sure you subscribe to that newsletter.
I'm going to call you in 2 months and check if you've done that now.
I will. Oh, that you hold me accountable. I love that. You know what? I love that because now my motivation is not intrinsic, it's also extrinsic, and I have both to push me into learning that. So that's great. So, okay, what is the best source for people now to learn about agentic AI? Generally speaking, I mean, obviously taking courses, taking, certificates is one way, but what's the best source in your opinion?
I think start small, right? Don't overcomplicate things. Start with something that is close to you. In your case, it could be the newsletter, for instance, something you're doing at work, which you say, I wish I could eliminate this mundane activity. It will make my life richer and it will, provide economic benefit from productivity perspective or otherwise to the company I work for. So select something very concrete and use Gen AI as a way to actually research about it. This is a problem I have. State your problem. This is what I would like to have as an outcome. What tools are out there that I should, experiment with? And you will get, and you start and you learn, and there are tons of YouTube videos about it. But try to solve something close to you, and that will give you, once it works and once you see the effect, it will actually be a positive iterative cycle because it gives you ideas. Wow, if I could do this, wait a minute, I have another idea. Can I do that? And, step by step, you're learning, you're getting an outcome, you're inspiring people around you to do the same. And that's how we start that kind of snowball of actually getting to work with these new tools.
Is there minimum, let's say, prerequisites of either knowledge or technical skills that I have to possess?
No, I mean, we know today that many companies are using tools to code maybe 95% of the program, right? We're still not maybe at 100% yet. You still need to understand basics of coding and testing, but I'm sure that, in a certain time frame, you will be there. A lot of the tools today are very user-friendly, and they are designed as well for people who are not, technical by nature to be able to use them. And this is improving for every week, basically.
So really, there's no real, it's like using a computer or Microsoft Word. You don't need to have real technical knowledge beside the basic, obviously, which everybody has, the knowledge of how to use computers and operating systems and applications, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying keep it simple as well, right? I mean, we're not going to develop something super complicated. It's going to take 3 years as my first project, because then you might need, of course, more skills to put it all together. But I'm saying go for something simple that will be enabled by tools that aren't for non-technical people.
Since late 2022, when Gen AI became mainstream, what is the one thing that you see people using it wrong?
Well, the first one is if people are not even using it. That's the biggest
mistake,
right?
I love that. Okay, so if you're not using Gen AI now, then you're really, really behind. Okay.
Well, I don't like to say that because it's never too late to start.
Right.
So I don't think we should say we are really behind, because that might put people into more paralysis. It's too late. I haven't done it before. Of course not. We are so early in this kind of age. We are so early. You start tomorrow, you start in 6 months, is never late. It's more about the commitment you put to your learning. So I encourage.
I love how you gave me the shock multiple times. Like, okay, I go into this negative. It's like, no, don't say that. I told you, I was looking forward to this. Okay, so how are they using it? So first is, if they're not using it, then that's the first mistake. Everybody has to use it. Everybody. Okay, good. So the ones that are using it now, from your observation, the past 3 years, what's the number one mistake that they're using it wrong?
Look, from my experience, I would say you can gain so much from using these tools, but don't let go of your own strength, in a way that I've been blessed to grow in an environment where I was pushed a lot on meritocracy. I was pushed a lot on communication skills and all of these above. And today I'm proud that, I'm able to articulate myself. I like to write. I like to speak with people. And you need to feel, what kind of emotions you're giving. All of these are different skill sets we need to thrive as human beings. And my only fear is that for the younger generation, if they allow Gen AI to do the majority of their activities and tasks, they will not put enough time on honing their own skills. That's my biggest fear. So use Gen AI to augment you, but then not to replace you. When we talk about, jobs and all that, it's actually me. Am I allowing now Gen AI to actually take over? And every email I write is written by Gen AI, not by me. Then what do I stand for then?
We're talking about how AI is replacing skill sets. How do I know that I'm using it in a way that actually is destructive to my own skill sets?
I think when you approach Gen AI, you should already have a bit of an idea. So if I ask a question, structure a marketing plan for me based on this and that. I should come with certain ideas myself. And then Gen AI might add some ideas, I didn't really see. That's
wow.
fine.
Okay.
But-
So if I'm let's say incapacitated, let's say I'm not able to generate ideas without the presence of AI,
Yeah.
then that's a red flag.
For me, that's how I think, because otherwise, what am I using my brains for, my experience and my potential for? I'd like to prepare myself before I go to Gen AI, because then I am testing myself in a way. And of course, with Gen AI, which is basically have accumulated all the knowledge of the world, of course, it will give me things I didn't think about. It will enrich my approach. But I cannot come, or I should not come, with an empty page and say, hey, do it for me. Because with time, I'm eroding my own added value.
Oh, wow. You're
so
right.
that's why I need to use Gen AI to augment me, to enrich me, but not to replace me.
So not let it start with things. So you do it on your own with probably a blank sheet of paper or a blank Word document, write the ideas, brainstorm, and then use it as a co-pilot, not as the driver, but in the passenger seat.
That's the way I see it. I think it's a healthy way to do so.
Are people using it this way in your opinion?
I don't know, but that's definitely the way I encourage my children, for instance, to do it.
I stopped. And this is, most of the people who know me know that I stopped using LinkedIn for some time now because it's become a charade of, again, this is my observation, this is my perspective, but it's a charade of ChatGPT. Every post that I see, every kind of thinking or feeling that people put there, and it's just, to me, it's not worth it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that at the end, you would have an agent AI reading another agent AI writing, right? So, but that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. It's very important. And I'm fine that you use Gen AI in your LinkedIn post to improve it. But it has to come from an authentic place. You need to be the one propelling a certain piece of thought leadership. Then if you need help with the grammar, with a couple of more ideas, a structure, that's fine. But it should represent the authentic myself that's coming through the post.
And how is that impacting businesses and the way businesses, as a leader, seeing employees? So let's go back to employees. So as a leader, is there a way, kind of a red flag that you're seeing that, let's say, potentially, most of your workforce is just really people who are just people who type prompts, and they're not really in their own way creatives or value adding. It's just that them going, and every piece of document, every productivity element, every piece of work that they're producing, you can sense that there's Gen AI is the one who's talking, not themselves. How do you sense that?
I think there are quite easy tell signs when you read if it's generated by these tools or by the actual writer, right? And I think it's important to have that discussion that for your benefit, I still see a lot of, strength in you, the way you approach the pros, your understanding maybe of the culture in that country or your understanding of that topic. That's why I hired you and that's why I believe in you. If you replace all of that with Gen AI, then of course you're making yourself replaceable. So it's important to say, can I combine your astuteness in delivering very compelling technical writings, for instance, again, with the support of Gen AI to make them even better? Then I'm very, very happy. But don't replace it with that, because then I'm losing the essence of what I hired you for.
So really, there's a balance between, someone who doesn't use AI at all. You don't want that, because that's someone who will never grow at the same pace as how everybody else is growing and how you want the organization to grow. So that's one, and you started with that, and I love that. But then the other end of the spectrum is someone who's completely shut down their minds, and every time they need anything, so you're in a meeting, let's say you're in this boardroom and you have 20, 30 people, and there's like, okay, can I have any ideas? And someone just opened their ChatGPT applications, like, give me ideas for this and that, and they give you ideas, and then they started spewing them out. That's bad. And you'll be able to tell. Because the moment you grill, the moment you scrutinize the ideas, because it's not coming from a place of knowledge, it'll fall apart.
I mean, again, it depends on what is the context. But, delivering on an outcome in a professional setting is not only coming with the idea. At the end of the day, most important part is to deliver on it with the right outcome, right? So so as long as you're using these tools to improve your output and support the organization or community you're working for, then that's the intent. That is the right way to use it. I'm just saying, for your own sake, in life, ensure that you build a very strong foundation of thoughts, decision process, ability to handle conflicting situations, diverging situations, unclear situations. All of these elements we need to thrive as professionals need to be developed. And they can only be developed by putting ourselves into those situations. If I shy away from them and always use tools to solve everything for me, then without these tools, I'm not really investing in me. And that's where each person of us needs to do, is to find that balance where I feel strong. I can be on the stage and have a, impromptu discussion or a Q&A like we're doing this without any tool. And if I come to a point where I'm handicapped or I have to have a small note here and every question you ask me, I have to look somewhere, come on. So that's why I'm saying the balance of using the tool to augment us, to propel us forward while keeping the authentic myself.
So really, if you don't have the balance, you'll be left behind either way. I mean, maybe the ones that are using it to drive their decisions and their work, they'll probably momentarily shine, but then at the first junction, the first conflict, they'll fall apart. Because like you said, ideas is different than actually doing the work, right?
Yeah.
And the other side will just be, the ones who refuse to use it. And surprise, surprise, I know a couple who till now refuse to use it because they think that, if I use it, I'll feed it my own knowledge. And I'm like, come on.
Well, there are settings where you can actually choose if the model will learn
exactly
contributions.
Exactly.
So you can.
But the point is, even if it doesn't exist, these settings, I mean, we're in a world now that you have a smartphone that we all know that it's tracking us all the time. Even if we switch off everything, it'll tell you, if you switch off all of these tracking, it'll tell you, we'll still track you, but it won't be as relevant to you. So heads up, right? So it is what it is. This is the world that we're living in right now. You want to, go to the Stone Age and live on a mountain, then that's a different story. And that's okay. That's fine. No judgment there. Your new venture, your new journey, how do you see it? What's your forecast at this new educational journey that you're on right now?
I've learned that much more interesting to forecast is to take action and see where that leads you. So I'm very open-minded on what's going to come next, because that makes the opportunities unlimited, frankly, right? And one thing that I'm really seeking is self-improvement at all times. Again, so grateful to have had this incredible journey with Ericsson. I've learned a lot, been all over the world, worked with exceptional talent team, great portfolio. Now I want to say, okay, what can I add to my skill set? And definitely, I'm learning Spanish, for instance.
Oh, wow.
One more language. And as I mentioned, I'm doing the chief officer. I started to learn how to program Python. So,
wow, you're really going to the roots. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
And it keeps you young, isn't it?
It keeps you involved.
Yes.
And you start asking questions.
Yes.
And that adds to the mix of the experience that I have now. And that, in a way, prepares me for whatever next I'm going to do, whatever shape or form it might take, as long as I feel it is, really fun to work with.
I like that. You mentioned something that you're always open and you love doing things without forecasting because you keep the potential open, and that doesn't limit you to your own, let's say, self-fulfilling prophecy or sort of limiting beliefs. And that's exactly what this podcast is. That's why I call it Escapade. Escapade is an adventure where you go, not knowing where you're going, but you're excited about it, right? That's why I've kind of linked and connected with your definition of how you see the next phase of your journey. So I'll have to end with this, and it wouldn't be an escapade if I don't ask you this question, Fadi. If there was one question that you would want me to ask, what would that be?
One question that you want to ask me?
If there's one question that you would want me to ask you, what would that be?
Maybe it could be, what has shaped you to be what you are today?
Oh, wow. Usually I ask this question, but I think the discussion went to... So exactly, okay, that. What was the root inspiration for you to have that positive mindset and that open outlook to have a limitless potential? Where did this come from?
I think I've been very fortunate to grow up in an environment where I've seen how positivity and an open mind will lead sometimes. And I think, in my generation, growing up, seeing the internet boom in the 2000s and all of the possibilities that technology brought, and again, I'm a technology person, right? Made me realize how much you can achieve in life for the industry and the society at large, and for yourself, of course, at the end of the day, by adopting these tools. I grew up in many countries. When I was 14, we moved to Sweden. So I've had a lot of different cultures. My first part of the upbringing was in the Middle East, born in Lebanon, lived a few years in Saudi, Egypt, but then I would say the teenage years in Sweden, studied in Sweden, and then after that, I moved there myself with my family. And I think it's all of these cultural mixes that I've been part of. They always have that, similar patterns of people encouraging you. And you see that if you work in that way and you shape these things, of course you will have challenges at all times. You will have problems. I'm not saying that you won't. But at the end of the day, you will always find a good way forward. And I think the positive approach helps a lot. And I have also to credit my spouse. She's an incredible positive person, and I've always been at awe at the way she approached things. And so I think it's the environment, and the more you experiment, and as we discussed, the more action you take, it reinforces the fact, that this works. Just reinforcing, testing, and getting that snowball moving.
So we're really a baggage of our own experiences. And I think, like you mentioned, because of the plethora of experiences that you had from multiple cultures and the results that you got, because probably if you didn't get those results, it'll have probably a negative consequence on the way you see things. And it'll have much more friction. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change, but at least you need to put extra effort. In your case, it wasn't. That's amazing. Listen, Fadi, I can talk to with you for hours. But I truly enjoyed. I learned a lot from you. I think I have to ask more positive questions than negative questions, because otherwise I'm going to always be left in this sort of self-limiting belief. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Osama. A real pleasure to be here and a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.